news just into CNN. The IMF has released its latest economic outlook in the last few minutes. It is cutting its forecasts for the world, saying the outbreak of war in the Middle East is threatening to throw the global economy off course. Eleni Jokos covering the latest for us. She is in Dubai. Just break down these numbers for us. How much is this forecast being cut, Eleni?
Well, according to the IMF, there are three major scenarios. So we're talking about a short-lived scenario, an adverse scenario, and a severe scenario. But I want to give you a breakdown of the numbers. So I want you to understand that if this war didn't break out, we would actually have seen an upward trajectory in global growth numbers. Let's go through those. With no war, anticipated GDP global growth would have been 3.4%, and in 2027, 3.2%. Put that aside. Let's look at these are actually the numbers now in a short-lived scenario, 3.1% and 3.2% for 2027. The IMF goes on to say that if we're looking at an adverse scenario where you're seeing oil prices hitting $100 a barrel to $125 a barrel, which is where we've been basically averaging around 100, and this is prolonged, you're seeing different numbers playing out, and this is going to have an impact on inflation and, of course, global growth. So in an adverse scenario, Becky, we're looking at GDP at 2.5% on the global growth front, and for 2027, 3% global growth. So that's with a projection of $100 a barrel on Brent crude. And then they plan out a severe scenario, which is actually where it gets a little bit worrying, because you're very close to recession territory, and they say that we haven't seen this kind of these kind of numbers. If we get into a severe scenario, only a few times since the 1980s, in fact, only 4 times since then. In that scenario, 1.9% on global growth on GDP, and then 2.2% for 2027. And, at the end of the day, if this war doesn't come to an end, if you don't see the Strait of Hormuz opening up relatively soon, this is going to have an impact on commodity prices that the IMF has spelled out. It's going to increase significantly in the next few months. It's going to put pressure on global economies, and again, an asymmetrical impact where you have stronger economies, of course, having a lesser impact, and then it's the emerging markets, Becky, that are going to take a big hit. And in fact, if I look at the Saudi Arabia numbers that they've put out, Saudi Arabia is going to have one of the sharpest declines in GDP for 2026. They put it down at 3.1%. That's going to be a knock of 1.3%. So the big messaging overall, global growth is going to be weaker, inflation is going to be higher, and again, IMF just pointing out, if this doesn't end anytime soon, you're looking at even worse numbers in the coming months.
Good to have you, Eleni. Thank you very much indeed. That news just into CNN, and more on that as we move through the next couple